only goods within the prescribed passenger allowance as provided for in Part B of the 5th Schedule of the Act. Red channel is for passengers carrying dutiable or restricted goods, provides that crew members of vessels or aircraft shall use the red channel. C. A person with uncustoms goods in his or her possession shall take them to the appointed place for examination of baggage. D. A person shall not remove any baggage or goods from the baggage room without the authorization of the proper officer of customs. So to enhance efficiency of passenger clearance at terminals, KRA facilitates compliance with the various provisions of ECMA 2004. I wish to state that KRA has stationed non-intrusive scanners across all ports of entry to aid verification of goods, to ensure that goods imported into the country are correctly declared, not only for taxation purposes, but also for the safety of Kenyans. Where imported goods are subject to customs duty, passengers are required to declare the actual price of the items, as valuation of the tax to be paid is based on the actual price paid for the imported goods. Passengers have a right to query the assessed customs duty and may seek an explanation from the customs officer. Customs duties are paid at appointed banks located within the terminals or through mobile banking platform after the generation of an electronic payment slip. Customs officers at the airport will generate the payment slip, which is available at the bank for ease of payment. In case the passenger is not able to make payment on the spot for dutiable goods or obtain the relevant authorization for restricted items, the same goods are deposited in the customs warehouse to allow the passengers take necessary steps to comply with the legal requirements, failing which the goods shall be disposed in the manner prescribed under ECMA 2004. To enhance compliance with these provisions of the Act, KRA implements the following measures. 1. Non-intrusive scanning of goods at the passenger terminals. 2. Awareness and sensitization of tourists, passengers, and the general public through diaspora webinars, frequently asked questions, website content, and our website is indicated there, media tours, and other publicity material. 3. Stakeholder engagement with specific agencies and interest groups to enhance awareness of such requirements, such as the Kenya Film Classification Board and Kenya Film Commission. 4. Deploying customer satisfaction surveys to enhance customer experience. 5. Institutional collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs to reach Kenyans living abroad and tourists intending to travel to Kenya with relevant information on requirements for travel to Kenya. So, Chair, as I conclude, in conclusion, I wish to indicate that KRA is committed to complying with all the laws in place as it executes its mandate of tax administration and trade facilitation. We also wish to state that we are willing to provide the committee with any other relevant information that they will require from us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. A follow-up question?
Let me just point out the issue of the value of $500. I believe that figure is too low. For example, I've been going outside and I bought an iPhone. And this iPhone I left in my bag. And fortunately, it was captured by your scanners. And the bag that was carrying this iPhone, a very nice bag I bought here in Kenya, almost 100,000. That excess, I felt bad just because of that iPhone. So actually, and again, if I go outside, I buy my kids some clothes. And the value of these clothes, I remember I am a polygamist. When I go outside, I have to carry something for the 4 wives or my kids, because wives are kids. Under the law of succession, if you are not aware and you've not read law, being informed by the law of succession, when you consider splitting property, you consider a wife as a child. That's law of succession. So get insight from the law. Okay, so I was requesting if we can revise the figures. The $500 should be revised upwards to at least somewhere $1,000. The second question, where do you classify members of parliament or elected members of parliament in this arrangement, because the frustrations we get at the airports, I can't explain. It is terrible. It is terrible. Finally, most of the borders of our country, all of them are not covered by the customs department. I come from Turkana County. There are almost 3 borders or 4 borders that are not taken care of by customs, KRA. The border between Uganda, that's Moroto, and Lorenkipi, or Lokriama, we are not doing anything. There's another one from Uganda again. When I was the chief officer for infrastructure for Turkana County government, I opened that route to Uganda. That one again, there's a lot of trade between Uganda and Kakuma. There's another border, Sudan and Lukchogo. There's nothing happening there. The border between Kibich and Ethiopia, nothing is happening. And remember, a lot of trade is taking place along these 4 corridors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ariko. Honorable Adivo.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification on the 500 US dollars. Now, when you are in a foreign airport, normally they have duty-free shop. You buy something from there under the knowledge that it is duty-free, and it is $600. When you arrive in Kenya, would you be exempt, or you still pay the tax because the value of what you have purchased is over 500? That's my question 1. The other one is, I realize you are applying a law that is enacted by East African Community, and when East African Community enacts a law, sometimes I know partner states are slow in implementing. I know, for example, when we contribute to the East African Community, some of the partner members don't even pay. Some are areas which are as old as they are in membership. So this act here, does it apply to them uniformly, and do they act on it? Do they implement it? I just wanted to know that.
My question is, how to determine the 500 USD, and what does our law say, Kenyan law? This is East African Community law, and whether Kenyan law supersedes any other regulation in other jurisdictions, because there should be a law in this country that deals with this. So when Kenyan law meets with EAC law, who supersedes the other? I am interested in this determination, because the determination of 500 USD, that's the same as 75,000 Kenya shillings at the moment, more than 75. And even your clothes, your own clothes, how to determine the clothes that you actually carried from Kenya and the ones that you bought the same time? How will you, it can come more than 75,000. Even your bag, you see, you can go there and buy a bag and put your goods, and the bag is costing more than 100,000, and it is the one that you are using to carry things. This 500 USD is actually very precarious. It is something that its determination for that value will be a nightmare. So we need to, and I think parliaments from across need to think about this, so that we can raise the figure to a higher value, like the 10,000 USD. It's about 3 million at the moment. I think when that is done, there used to be what is called a privileged back for VVIPs. Do you still have what is called privileged back, which for those other people who are at a higher level, and do they have what is called a privileged back, where they are not subject to? Is there any Kenyan who has a privileged back anyway?
Asante, Mheshimiwa Mboni.
Chair, I'm really very concerned because this law, East African Community Customs Management Act, 2004. 2004 up to now is 19 years. Now I'm just wondering, my first question is there any other East African country which is implementing this requirement of $500? That's number one. Number two, from 2004, what has KRA been doing about this? Why now? Why are you waking up now? Thirdly, don't you see, before implementing this, have you done analysis of the effects of this to the tourists and travelers and the country as a whole? Thank you.
Asante, Mheshimiwa
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. My bag is checked. As far as I know, it's the customs guys that check. How do they evaluate? For example, the watch I'm wearing is worth maybe $500. How would they know that it's actually a watch that is that much or less? And the clothes I carry, because if I go out and buy, let's say I go to Dubai and buy buibui, how would they know the amount of buibuis I'd be carrying? Maybe each would cost $500 or $20 or $10. Then the harassment that comes with that now is where the problem is, because I don't think they are sensitized enough to know the values of these things. Then it happened to me twice, my family members, that my sister, who had a phone that was a year plus old, is told this simu inakampia. I don't think that now you guys are overstepping your mandate, because if my phone has my SIM card and you can clearly tell this is a phone I'm using, then how do you tell this is a phone that is old or new? How do you even reach to that point where this thing is new or old? Now next you're going to come back to clothes. Maybe I carry clothes that I bought secondhand from here. When I come back, I'm told these are new clothes. Same way as my polygamist colleague said, because we are naturally people who, of course, you're expected as a family person to buy presents for your family members. It reaches a point where when you're taking an item, you think about, when I go there, how do I? Then you're given, let's say, 70 kilos to carry, and you end up carrying nothing coming back. The harassment that comes with it, it's not always all the time. I should give credit where it's due. Your chief manager there, I think Mr. Nyaga, I've interacted with him severally, and where possible and where common sense prevails, we are let go. But then another example is gold. I've seen several pieces of gold over there. How would you know this is personal gold? I go out to go buy something outside there because they're beautiful and it is a preserve for some countries. Because if you go to Saudi or UAE, of course, that is where people go shop for gold. If I just want to buy a necklace and it is more than $500, sometimes, as much as we are following the law, we should also use common sense, knowing that if I tell you this is my personal thing that I bought, then I should be let go. Then the inconvenience caused by the traffic created by sometimes very rude officers who, because if to check my item, you would put me aside rather than create inconvenience for someone who is not even carrying any luggage. So I don't know. It's not about the law and following the law, but how you guys are applying is where the problem is. Thank you.
JKIA. Yesterday, when you're visiting the airport with, I think, the cabinet secretary for tourism, I think you wanted to demonstrate to Kenyans how the scanning is done. But the images we saw was a passenger's bag being open to the full glare of cameras. Had you sought permission from that passenger before you opened their bags like that? Because I don't think I want my bag to be open like that to cameras. Did you seek their consent? And then even when you were demonstrating, and I think this is where we are getting it wrong. So even when you are demonstrating how it's done, your officers were just checking the bags with naked hands. So my bags could contain sensitive things, whether they are inner clothing. So, for example, then if I wouldn't want someone checking them with just hands like that. So how are you doing to sensitize this? And especially, I think yesterday's images, we missed it. We missed it. I don't know whether you really had consent from that passenger to open their bag in public. I don't know. I think that would be something crucial to know. Then how much are we collecting in terms of revenue from these passengers, from these phones and these items? How much really are we collecting? And Commissioner, how do you compare now with what will be foregone? Because, if someone gets such a treatment, then do they want to come back here? And I say this because we're really trying to be competitive out there. The lions we have in Masai Mara are not different from the ones in Serengeti, or the elephants. In fact, they are the same. So why would I want to come back to Kenya if that's the experience that I face at the airport? And I think most of us have been to our East African community states. Been to Kampala, you don't get that. Been to Dar es Salaam, you don't get that. Been to Zanzibar, you don't get that. So are we thinking about how that makes us with other East African states? And that's why one of the honour members asked, although it's an ECMA, it's an East African community law, our neighbors implementing it. Okay? It's where now we are setting us up to fail because we are very strict on this side and the others are not as strict. So my personal experience a few months ago is I came back with an iPhone, okay, and I thought, let me take it's how you upgrade your phone, and then when you come, I didn't have my PIN, so I hadn't started using it because that PIN was at home. So I put it in the bag, and then once they scanned the bag, some gentleman said, you got an iPhone, you got an iPhone. So I was taken aback because the way they treated my suitcase is like I was carrying a contraband good. It's like, in fact, I wondered, did someone put something in my suitcase without knowing? And then they were, you, and then they take the suitcase and say, come, follow me. So I follow them back there. Fungua. I said, okay. Kuna simu hapa nani? Yeah, there is a phone. Okay. Now you have to pay taxes on it. I said, fine. So why? How much do you buy it at? I said, I traded it in. So I had my old phone, and I gave it to an Apple shop, and I added some money. So how much do you add? I'm like, I can't recall. And honestly, I couldn't. When you shop a few things. Then you have to pay taxes on this. And I said, fine, I understand that you have to pay taxes on it, but have you checked the other items in the suitcase? There are 2 suits, and there are 3 perfumes. So why are you singled out the phone? And they said, now, unataka kunifundisha kazi? I'm like, no, we are only trying to have a conversation. And this is me like a few months ago. And we had landed at around midnight. So we actually spent a whole hour with that officer, and I was trying to really be calm because I really wanted to understand the reason. I said, fine, I understand, fine, but why are you singled out the phone? Why are you not checking the suits? Why are you not checking? Then eventually we couldn't agree, so I left the phone and went. And there's so many such cases. When this matter has come up, we've received calls from very many Kenyans who are saying, I brought the same thing. I brought a phone something. I went, and even the way now we are explaining this to the person, and I'm taking this myself as a personal example, we are not being clear what we are doing. We're not clear on the criteria we're using. And that's when you answer the question of how much we are collecting. So the question is now, how do you balance off, so that you're not getting somebody so scared they don't want to ever come back here again, and we lose out on much more revenues that I've got from these people. And again, people are also comparing the experience in other airports, because it's not that that other airports don't have these taxes or don't have this. They do. But how do you get treated? Chances are you will find those very well-traveled Kenyans. They are saying, if you've watched on what they're saying on all internet platforms, that experience is only in Nairobi and not in the other countries. So we want to have an understanding here of how now we get to move forward. And I think those are quite a number of questions.
That's a future conversation which we are committing to take up. The $500, we all agree it's low. And yes, that is a conversation that we'll be submitting through our principal, the National Treasury, to go to EAC so that the figure can then go up. But meanwhile, what we are committing to do as KRA is to look at our processes, streamline the process at the airport, and not just KRA alone, working together with our other agencies at the airport. You must appreciate, honorable members, that KRA doesn't operate in isolation. We have KRA who are in charge of security. We have the police there. We have the port health. We have KFIS. So many agencies there. But what we are committing to do is, and we have already started, is to streamline our processes, work on areas like where scanners are a bit faulty, work on ensuring that they are up and running and efficient, and also work on our staff, on the PR element. I think that is the bigger message I'm getting here, that our PR needs to be upped, and we are working on that to ensure that our officers treat all passengers with respect, dignity, so that people feel, great to come back to Kenya. So that is what we are committing to do, and you will see a changed face of customs at the airport. So I'll go to the questions. On the question of the $500, that it's too low, and the issue to revise it upward, again, we've taken that feedback and we've had discussions. So this is a proposal that we'll have to take it through Treasury and the Ministry of Trade to EAC so that we present that. Because again, the law has to be amended concurrently with all the other approval of the other partner states. So that is something we'll take up. But before we get there, what do we do? Before we get to $1,000 or $2,000, what do we do in the meantime? In the meantime, we will be reasonable while applying the law, because we are tied by the law. We have to implement the law. We are basically the implementers, But we will be reasonable. We will ensure that all travelers are treated well and fairly. We'll work on improving, and we'll continue taking back feedback. We may not be able to change overnight, but it's a journey, and that we are committing to. So we will work on our systems, our processes, and our staff to ensure that we are reasonable and fair. And on that same note, if I talk about the valuation, because the $500, there was a question about how do you value, how do you tell? So just to tell the honorable members is that from our statistics, I think a big percentage, most of the taxes we actually collect, all the declarations that come in, are self-declaration. So the percentage of items that we intercept are very few. It's about 5% that we intercept from all the, and we have the statistics. Out of the 1.4 million, I think, bags that we've have passed through the airport, JKIA, only 5% have been intercepted. So your bag comes in, goes through your checked-in baggage is scanned, comes to the customs area. So long as it's not marked, we don't even touch them. We only ask you to scan your hand luggage, the one that was not checked in. So in terms of the values, again, most of the values are self-declared. Self-declared. Where there is doubt is where we ask for proof. So
sorry.
Yes.
You've said that the only bags that are scanned are?
So your checked-in baggage is scanned. By the time you're leaving the flight, is scanned. Before it goes to the carousel, it's already scanned. So you'll find some bags have an X. Yes. So that one has been picked. Yes, has been picked. But if it is not marked, when you're leaving now, we are passing through the customs scanner. If your bag is not marked, it is not scanned. Your hand luggage, remember the hand luggage is what you went into the flight with. That is what is scanned. Because the checked-in one has already been scanned. But if the checked-in one has an X, then that one has already been identified and profiled for verification. And even the ones that are marked, it is not necessarily that they'll be opened. So once you arrive with your bag at the customs area, there'll be an interview and you'll be questioned, and depending on your status and everything, are you a tourist, are you all the items you're carrying, at that point then the officer will say whether to open your bag or not. Yes. So those are some of the things, Chair, we are seeing that we need to work on putting out the information out there so that Kenyans are, well sensitized and made aware of the operations at the airport, so that we don't assume people know. We work on putting out the information as much as we can. So there was the question on...
but maybe there on the X, you may also want to improve on the X, because people are saying that the way it's marked sometimes it's become a permanent mark on that suitcase. So that next time you travel, then it's still... I'm just giving you feedback from Kenyans.
Okay, we've taken that feedback, Chair. We'll work on that. On the second, there was a question on where do you classify MPs in this arrangement, and Chair, you clarified that, but Honorable Ariko, I think my assurance is we are working to ensure that we treat everyone fairly and equally and with dignity. That is what you're working towards, so that when you pass there, you feel respected, whether you are a Mheshimiwa or are a Mama Mboga. We treat everyone fairly, same standards. Okay, then there was the issue of our borders not being taken care of, customs. So I will pause there. I'll continue the questions, but at some point I'll ask our Deputy Commissioner for Border Control to address that. There was the question on enacting EAC law, the $500 again, where we implementing and other countries are not implementing. Some partner states are not complying. So Chair, I think for KRA and for customs, our mandate is to implement the law. So we are committed to implement the law, yes. And whereas some partner states may not be fully implementing, I know the differential. For example, some countries you'll find our taxes are not the same. So import duty will be the same, but VAT is different. Phones, for example, we have excess on phones we don't have in Uganda and Tanzania, so there'll be differential in taxes. So that could also cause a variation. But yes, I do know that our partner states actually implement the law. The extent to which is what may be different, yes. Again, this is something we'll take up. I'll take up with my colleagues in the other countries so that we are again having a uniformed way of handling our passengers everywhere, as we're also pushing to bring up the $500 so that we are all using the same law. And then the question was, there was again on the use of ECMA, the question was, how do you determine the US dollar that I talked about? What does the law say, and whether Kenya law supersedes any other legislation? So, Mheshimiwa, for the customs laws in Kenya are basically governed by ECMA. Yes, by ECMA. So import, export, transit, anything that goes through. So where we use the local law, local legislation that governs domestic taxes is the VAT excise element, which is local jurisdictions. But in terms of customs, we are governed by the EAC, Act that we all subscribe to. And where we need to make changes, then we pass it through the EAC forum, which goes all the way to Council of Ministers and our heads of states. So it goes through that channel. So I'm not sure there's any point at which we have any contradiction, because I think the only law that governs importation for customs purposes is ECMA. And for the local legislation, for the items that use the local legislation for domestic tax, then we use the local law, VAT. That's why Kenya will use 16% VAT, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda will use 18% VAT. So there was the question on so I'll ask so Mr. Mashari, I think I'll ask you to take up the question on the borders, and then I'll come back from there. Thank you, Chair.
Status. We used a security hub, we have lost that. We used the infrastructural hub, you only need to compare what happens at Bole. And Chairman, maybe one of the things that you should do in our future, take us one day to Bole International Airport and Kigali and compare with what happens at Jomo Kenyatta. And that's the time when you know that whatever you are doing right now is a zero-sum game. Not that you have dismally performed, but generally we are not functioning as expected. One of the things that touched me, Chairman, is when we were going out at Terminal 1, the first contact, the place was like a baraza. I was tempted to call the MD of KRA. There's no aircon. We had to seek somebody's assistance to take us through because we were about to miss actually our flight. And I challenge you, see what happens, Terminal 1, first, second security check. You're asking all these people to comply with this, and yet even yourself, you are not compliant. A small, cagey, dirty room, you have close to 300 people, each struggling to be clear. And yet you want them to come back to this country as a very important tourism hub. I think, Chairman, we need to get facts. I see two things in what I have observed. There must be an internal struggle within KRA. Internal struggle, and I will go public with this. Internal struggle, because some of these things are not there. If this is the entity that we have trusted with tax collection, I was carrying a paper that I bought at Livingstone International Airport. It had one, call it, how do I call it? A very nostalgic thing that I bought from Zambia. It cost me less than $5. The person who interacted with me actually was extremely rude. I didn't care. I was really extremely rude. It's like the person was ready for a fight. And I just said, okay, here is the paper, take it, subject it to the same. Whatever content you wanted to look at was $5. Even the price was fixed there. I didn't care. I was ready to pay. But that is not what scared me. What scared me was the attitude. To Mekosana, where did we meet? And obviously from my face, I've been around for some time, the person, and I didn't expect any preferential treatment. So the first question is, Chairman, is KRA functioning? Ama kuna vita? Na kama kuna vita, are Kenyans or our visitors, will be visitors, supposed to be the victims of your own internal politics? And I dare say this. That is one. Two, what do we intend to achieve in chasing anybody who comes to Kenya? I have traveled to, Chairman, I have traveled to over 136 countries over the last 30 years. I'm just counting the number of countries that I have not visited. And I make personal selection when I want to travel. What we are doing right now is not going to serve the interest of the people of Kenya. It's not going to serve the interest of Kenya. If anything, you are chasing everything good that we have been doing, including what the chairman said right now. You're opening somebody's bag. You may have discovered something, but the glare of the media. What are you saying? Where is the right to privacy? Even if there were issues, those issues ought to have been sorted out. That is why in all civilized international airports, Chairman, there's a private room. You know, you are checked, everything is there. Even the ultimate decision that is reached is reached. through some sort of private arrangement, you're not publicized. And you know these days the effect of social media. So Chairman, my take is, I'm not sure even the names of good people who are here, but there's a problem with KRA, and being the committee responsible, we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to dissect this. What they are doing is not going to assist the people of Kenya. If anything, it's going to be counterproductive. That is why today, just compare the traffic in Pole Airport in Ethiopia, which is supposed to be a landlocked country, Kigali Airport, which is supposed to be a landlocked country, vis-a-vis what we have been doing. Tanzania is already catching up with us. Uganda has been our favorite trading partner. They are catching up. So we are barely left to compete with Southern Sudan, Burundi, and Somalia. What are you telling us? So this Chairman, it's not PR issue anymore. It's a matter of survival for the people of Kenya. It's not a PR issue. Don't treat that separately. When you see Honorable Kainan there, treat him the same way that you treat Mama Mboga. But please show us the value for this. The value for this, because we have seen it all. You carry an iPhone, the chairman has alluded, maybe you bought it at duty free from another airport. You have seen it. Your interest is to humiliate the person who is carrying this. Chairman, with good due respect, there's a problem with KRA. This problem must be dissected and we must address it. If we fear as a committee, we will address it as individual members of parliament through the floor and through other means. Otherwise, you are not being honest with us. PR is no more. KRA must function as expected. You are not doing it. In Chairman, I remember you'll find this as part of the history. Once upon a time, they were excluded from everything, courtesy of a roadside declaration by Mzee Moi, late Mzee Moi maybe. We removed them from the ambit of treasury, just even to come for public scrutiny. That public scrutiny must pay dividend to the people of Kenya. And Chairman, the onus is on you as our leader here. What we are being told is not true. It's not true. It's a PR issue. What is the problem with KRA? The collections are not even meeting our expectations. The PR is not meeting our expectations. The national image is not. You are acting as an entity that is meant actually to scare everybody. That is not the KRA that we expect. Tell us what has happened to KRA. Thank you, Chairman.
Wow, that was fierce. so you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mheshimiwa. So I'll answer the two questions that came up. So the first question was, why now? And why? Because there's a lot of focus right now. Why now? And then the second question is, what do we intend to do? Why are we collecting taxes? Yeah, and what do we intend to do? What do we intend to achieve by what we are doing? So, and then I'll go to the other question of is there an internal struggle with KRA? What is the real issue? Yeah. So the first question was, why now? Honorable Umi, was why now? I think, as I'd said before, we have been implementing the law even before. We have been implementing the law. But why the upsurge and why the feedback from the public is because in the last quarter, we have seen an upsurge of highly dutiable items in terms of values. So at that point, then we intercept and ask for taxes. So, and I'll give an example, and I'll tie the questions together to what the chairman asked. How much revenue have we collected? So I'll give the figures. For the last 4 months, this financial year, July, August, September, we've collected 51,136,822. So 51 million has been collected through the declarations at the JKIA. But if I can just give the trend of the figures, in July, we collected 8.1 million, August 9.4, September went to 14, and October last month, the figures was 19. So the figure is on an upward trend. So just to qualify the statement is that I had made earlier that we have seen an upsurge of dutiable items, hence the more focus. Yes, and it's expected that there's a reaction when you're collecting more taxes, and because we're dealing with individuals at the airport. So that is the case. So why are we collecting revenue? To answer to Honorable Kainan, why are we collecting revenue? Is because we are mandated to collect taxes. Yes, Simply that, yes. If the law was amended to say 0, we will not collect anything. But we are bound to collect taxes, and we have a principle, and we have all of you to hold us accountable to that. That's why we are collecting taxes. How we are doing it is a
Simple answer.
Yes, and I want to qualify the statement by saying how we are doing it might be the problem, and I think you've really articulated it. So those are the areas that now we have taken feedback to work on. But in terms of collecting taxes, Mheshimiwa, we will please allow us to continue collecting taxes. The how is what we need to deal with, so that we, as we said, we treat people, courteously, people with dignity, so that people don't feel harassed at the airport. Then, on the issue of what we intend to achieve, again, is to basically collect taxes. But just apart from taxes, Mheshimiwa and honorable members, actually taxes is not the primary role while we are at the airport. So at the airport, and my team here on the border control element, and I'll hand over to our DC, Border Control and Enforcement, but just to say there's much more we do than collecting taxes. In fact, the bigger area is the protection of society. So the things that come in, we have done so many interceptions at the airport. Again, in the same period, July to October, we've had around 571 items, including drones, guns, toy guns, magazines, handcuffs, sex toys, shisha, bleaching cream, Viagra. We have all sorts of things that we've intercepted. The values, I may not have the figures now, but the values are much higher than even the taxes we've collected. So it's a balancing thing. So we've even had a case of a tourist coming in, and ideally we don't open up. We allow tourists to pass through. But even as they pass through, their cargo must be scanned. We have a case of a tourist who had 7 guns. So, honorable members, we will balance in terms of collection of taxes and treatment of taxes. But please allow us to also protect the society, because there's a lot that is coming in through this country that we have to intercept. And that's a bigger picture.
Chairman, I think there's a qualification so that we are not taken out of context.
Yes.
Allow me this. We are not saying, sorry, so that we have the media here, we are not taken out of context.
Yes.
We know your work first is to collect revenue for security reasons. We understand your role, but we are questioning the how it's being done. Otherwise, I don't think whether it is illusion of KRA, we will not have a system. That bit we understand, but we are saying it must be done in the most civil manner, in the most diligent manner. You collect taxes, you do a lot of security surveillance. That we 100% agree, so that our statement is not taken out of context. We are not in any way saying that KRA should not do. We want you to even do thoroughly. But do it in a manner that doesn't remove the civil liberty of the individuals, a manner that does not prejudice the privacy of the individuals, a manner that will also create the human aspect, the human face of the tax collection. Because like when somebody approaches you have not met, and the person is in a fighting mood, and then the person will come, and when she or he is laughing and say, look, the person will accept and even accede. I had 2 Irish chairmen, two Irish citizens who are part of our, and I think they must have boarded from South Africa. I had the lady say she will never pass this again. Maybe at around 90 or so, she said she will never pass it. And from Livingston, we were together. We sat next to each other at the VIP lounge, and I saw how she went through there. The difference is how that person was approaching that particular individual. Not in terms of, maybe the Zambian airport might have gained more revenue, but the approach is what we are trying to say. The approach, is it an internal struggle? I'll repeat that question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Kainan. Honorable Makilap, so I think your last statement has
I think I be fair to Nyawanda and her team, because we are interested in security and revenue, and KRA have been in this airport for a long time. It's only now that maybe they started implementing this. What I wanted them to do is perhaps check with their neighbors, so that our neighbors do not have a competitive edge against Kenya. What they are doing on this act, the ECMA, so that whatever they are doing, we simply, even make our game better, so that we become a better destination. I think that is what needs to be done. And then also ensure our security as a country. I have been to Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv is even worse. And in that country, in Israel, it is not even men who check people. It is women. And they deal with you properly. They actually remove everything and put it like this. So, yeah, from your own things like this, and so what is only required is that human aspect of your officers, that PR exercise of your officers, and then get in touch with the EAC states so that we can up this game to about 10,000 USD, so that it becomes reasonable, because anything now that's about 3 point something million now using the current dollar, then that will bring, ease of travel for people. So let's change the PR exercise, change the how you handle these matters, so that, because it is law, it is not you and your team. And Chairman, finally, you see, it is us who pass finance bill. It is us, this government, which want tax, because there is serious matters that affects our economy. Let's also be honest. In fact, there is a push to get enough revenue to run our programs and pay our debts. So the government pushes KRA, KRA must also push citizens. So it's a game. When we push KRA to collect money, and then KRA will also push people. And if you don't take care, you will milk blood instead of milk.
Thank you. Honorable.
And I think if, as members of Parliament, we feel that we need to change your mandate, anybody can bring an amendment to the KRA Act. So to me, you continue with the mandate. The only thing I will request is that you do your things in human manner. I don't want to see a situation whereby my friend, when he went to Tel Aviv, all the things were being thrown left and right. And that means that I will not even want to go to Tel Aviv. But I know you have challenges to collect taxes. And that's why maybe probably you are looking at the laws everywhere and see where you can get taxes. But you see, now you also have to have a trade-off between collecting taxes and even losing more, because if people feel that they are mistreated in the airport, they may not come back. And you see, you may want to collect the 500, tax of $500 is quite, but you see, you have to look at what this person, when he comes to Kenya, how much is this person on average they are going to spend, and how much are we getting in terms of taxes? Because when they come here, they sleep in the hotels, they eat food, they travel. Look at all that globally and see what you can do. But yesterday we were discussing. There's a report we were discussing yesterday in Parliament on one-stop border point, my what was in my mind is that these one-stop border points, which actually were funded by World Bank, there are only 7. And then what came to my mind is that most of the northern Kenya, apart from Moyale, the other side, there's no functioning border point. And there's a lot of trade which is coming in, a lot of goods which are coming in the country. And then I was wondering, like Mandera, there's no Liboy. I mean, when are we going to see these border points? Even my friend from Turkana, there's a lot of trade where we can even get more money than the 51 million you are talking about, and bridge the gap. They'll bridge the gap. So this what, because there's one time I was doing a study on informal cross-border trade in Rwanda. I was a consultant there in my early life, and that study, it was being funded by Trademark, where the PS was the CEO, or PS Treasury, and even another one was done in Kenya. And we realized that 4% of trade, no, cross-border trade, informal where there is no taxation, is considered around 4%. And you see that one was only done in borders which are operating. But you see, if you look at Northeastern, right, how much are we losing? Yes. How much are we losing? The Dangis which are transporting goods from Ethiopia to Kenya in Mandera, yeah. And then the issues of outdated scanners. There's one time we were in Mombasa, and of course here, airport here. The scanners here seem to be very old. In Mombasa, even that report, we are talking about lack of scanners in Maraba. So when are we seeing new scanners whereby, like the ones in inland port, yeah, whereby the truck will just pass and is scanned, than whereby it takes like 10 minutes, 20 minutes to scan only one truck. I mean, when are we going to see that to create efficiency? Thank you.
Asante, Dr. Mwiti.
Mwiti, MP South Imenti Meru County, member of this committee. Through the chair, my concern, although I came a little bit late, is how does the KRA professionally differentiate the goons for commercial and personal use? Because we have seen in various cases at the airport whereby somebody is forced to pay for goons meant for the family. And you find that most people, when they travel, they do shopping for extended families. Family guard children, relatives, and what have you. And we have been forced to pay taxes for commercial goons when they are personal goons. It's a core duty for KRA to collect taxes so that they can fund the exchequer. It is also the responsibility of KRA to protect our goons within the country. My concern is in the inspection areas, whereby, as my colleague has said, you find that you open your suitcase and even your innerwear in front of your grandchildren is being checked. My take on this particular issue is infrastructure and areas for inspection to be modified and updated to the world today. Our culture is very, very important. There are some items you are not supposed to see from my children. Neither should see from a person like me who is actually checking it out. So I would like KRA really to differentiate the commercial and the personal goods. Secondly, at least improve the areas of inspection so that we are not embarrassed. Thank you.
Thank you for those follow-up.
Thank you, Chair, and we appreciate the comments and the questions from the honorable members. So I'll continue from where I stopped as I respond to the other questions before I hand over to Deputy Commissioner Macharia. So I think the issue that Honorable Kenan had raised about the why collect taxes, we addressed that, and I think the clarification was the way we are doing it. Yeah. So that we will work on, and I said, I think from the beginning, that is an area that we need to improve on, and we take note of that, and we've gotten the feedback even from the public. So that is an area we're working on. So what are we doing? We are looking at our staff complement at the airport to ensure that we have enough people at the shifts, in each shift, and then we are working on identification of our staff, because again, we also have people posing as imposters in the airport. So identification so that you can clearly identify who you are dealing with. You can even track the person you dealt with at any one point. I talked about scanners. That's an area we're looking at, subject to funding and other discussions, but that's an area we are looking at to ensure that our scanners are efficient. The other area of Honorable Mwiti talked about the inspection areas is also an area we are looking at, because we are hosted by KRA at the airport. So we're in discussions with them in terms of the infrastructure, the layout, even the positioning of the scanner, what is the optimal place to put it so that passengers are not inconvenienced, and how, having private areas where we can, verify and even interrogate the travelers when they come in. So those are all areas that we've already identified, and we are working on that. So the the objective is, as we address all these areas, we are working at the process, the systems, the infrastructure, and then the PR, how then we are treating our people. And of course, working with our staff to ensure that they uphold the utmost level of integrity. So those are the areas we are looking at. And it's already something we are working on to ensure that basically airport is not a place to dread. It's a place you look forward to coming home, or as a tourist, it's a place you look forward to, getting a warm reception and a welcome. The other area, I think I've talked about the inspection, and so the how is the big takeaway here, and that we are working on. Yeah, there was the question about the media coverage yesterday and the the commercial. So you talk about the commercial. Okay, so let me talk about the incident yesterday. Then I think I'll hand over to Deputy Commissioner Policy before we go to border control. He'll talk about the commercial and how we value. But there was an incident on the media yesterday where the passenger was, put out in the full glare of media. So I just need to confirm that he actually was engaged by the media and he allowed them to capture it. We were not comfortable with it, but he wanted it covered. So you notice that was the specific person who was covered. So any person who was covered actually gave express authority to be covered, but that is not the norm. And you appreciate that yesterday we had too much media at the airport, and they were interested in at least understanding the process. So we wanted to walk them through and just understand our ways of operations, as we also opening ourselves up, for feedback and for correction. So that specific case was actually with the consent of the passenger. So I think those are the main areas.
But there was also a concern of how your tenant was handling the passengers' items. I don't think it's safe even for your staff.
Oh, yes.
It's not safe for your staff. It's not safe for the passenger.
Yes. So Chair, that's an area also we picked, and we actually already issued that. We've issued the staff with gloves. Yeah, but gloves so that they handle the passengers' items well, and also we're working with KRA to give us areas for privacy so that we don't open up, people's luggages in front of everyone else. So I'll hand over to Mr. Ontweka. He'll talk about how do we differentiate between commercial and personal.
Thank you, Chairman, and the Honorable Dr. Mwiti raised a specific issue on personal use and commercial. Unfortunately for this law, on page 6 of our report, we have just quoted what you are allowed as a passenger to come with. So that then if your presence that you are bringing to your next of kin or your family exceed that amount, which members of parliament have already put across, that we need to evaluate and increase the value from the 500 so that they are able to buy items to give to their next of kin, then that's what it will do. But the law currently puts us in a situation that we can only allow you to bring in up to a maximum of value of $500 of the goods you are bringing. Whether they are for commercial or not, the value will determine what is going to come in duty-free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And there's one more question I think you raised.
I will address an issue that was raised by Honorable Ariko regarding the border points in Turkana. First, let me start by taking the members through how the borders are operated. One, the government decided in 2014, the government decided to take the multi-agency approach. This is where you find that at the border points, we have several agencies operating. We have immigration, we have police, we have Kenya Bureau, we have Port Health, we have KEFIS, KRA, NIS, and counterfeit, and so many other agencies. They are 21 in number. For the agencies to operate at any point of entry, there must be a coordinated way of doing things so that we are able to facilitate trade. You cannot be able to facilitate trade when each and every agency is working on its own. So that is why the government decided to bring all these agencies to work together in a coordinated way. So for opening of new border stations, the same approach is adopted. And you find that for us to operate in the system I have explained, there are systems that have been put in place. First, at the OSBPs, or point of entries, we have committees. That is the border management committees. And in every land border, KRA is the lead agency. We are the chair of those committees, and we ensure the coordination of all the borders run smoothly as it is expected. When it comes now to the national level, we have the border control and operation coordinating committee. This is a committee that is composed of permanent PSs and head of institutions like KRA and counterfeit, MD, KEBS. All of them are supposed to now check what is being done at the border stations. When we come at the national level, we have now the National Security Committee, which used to be NSAC, National Security Advisory Committee. That is the one now that approves all what has been done from the ground. So when it comes now to reopening or opening of border stations, first of all, there must be an expression. And this expression mainly comes from the members of Parliament, or the other agencies like KRA can express and indicate that there is a lot of trade that is going on, or members of the public can as well request. In 2018, we had a request of 23 border stations that needed to be opened. And what happened is that the border management committee decided, or secretariat decided, to go out all the areas that request had come and do an assessment. For an assessment to be done, there are criteria that are considered. The criteria include like the population, the volume of trade, the infrastructures that are in that area, and so many other items that are in the checklist. So with regard to the area that is the Turkana, I can confirm that out of the 23 that were recommended, out of the 23 that had been suggested, and the work that was done, the assessment, up to the National Security Advisory Committee level, where the approvals were done, only 7 were approved, and 2 are from in the Turkana. If I may take the members through, the first one was Konyao, that is in West Pokot. The second was Rokiriama, the place we have mentioned, and the particular place is Lomokori. Lomokori is the border, and we did it exactly at the border, because when you are doing a point of entry, it must be done in a way that you would expect a reciprocal point of entry on the other side of the country. So that is why we go to the border, so that as we do a point of entry on our side, also Uganda, we also be able to do a point of entry. So the other one we did approve was, or that was approved, was Todanyang. That is the border of Kenya, Turkana and Ethiopia. Kenya and Ethiopia. The other one was Ileret in Marsabit. And then we had Oposumoru in Narok. And we also had Suftu in Ethiopia and Madeira, and Lamu, Ethiopia and Madeira, Lamu of R. Then when it comes to operationalization or construction of the border station, who is mandated to do that? KRA, as the lead agency, is supposed to do the construction. And before we do the construction, there is acquisition of land. When you identify a point of entry, that particular place, land may be communal or privately owned. When it is communal, there is a process of acquiring land through that is owned by the community. You must go through the county government, and when you go through the county government, you must put the expression. The county government must concur. You must have public participation and all that. For the area in particular, that is Turkana, that is Lomokori and Todanyang, let me confirm that we have done public participation. And the good thing is the public or the community has donated 50 acres to KRA in each of these places to do construction of a point of entry. And when we talk of 50 acres, is because it is futuristic. We would expect that border station or point of entry to grow. And when it grows, you would also expect a lot of growth in terms of doing major construction within the point of entry. Then there is the issue of engaging other countries, like Uganda. When we identify, like Lomokori, where we identified as the point of entry, we are doing a lot of engagement with Uganda. And the good thing is Ugandan government has also accepted to do a border station closer to where we have identified. So we can confirm that Lomokori will be a point of entry. We have already done the drawings. We have developed the BQs. It's not now a matter of funding. For Todanyang, the same process is going on, and very soon we'll also have another border station opened. So other than that, we also have the rapid response unit. These are a bit internal. They are not at the border, so that whatever has, and also we also have the inland control checkpoints that we are also doing, so that whatever has escaped the border can also be able to be nabbed in interior before it gets now to the major towns. That's what I can confirm to the members. Thank you.
Chair, I think Chair, he addressed only
Attempting to have an integrated system among all counties for own source generation, own revenue generation, which is the equivalent of taxes for counties. But maybe that's a convention to speak with CRA. So I was saying we have the same interest for this republic. We stay here, we work here, we go through those experiences ourselves at the airports, and therefore the concerns you hear from us and that you've heard from Kenyans are very, very genuine concerns. This committee takes up the issue on the $500 limit. We're going to file a motion in Parliament, and they're going to institute an amendment to IECMA, to revise the limit of $500 and at least also guides on which items again are not subject to customs. For example, if I just bring home things for own use, then they ideally shouldn't be subject to those customs. But before then, help us. Because we could collect the 51 million shillings that we've collected in the last few months. I think it's around 8 million a month. But at what cost? It has a cost of making us a national embarrassment to the globe, making us uncompetitive to our tourists. So in as much as we push you And I think some honorable member put it very well. I think it was Honorable Makilap, that it is us pushing you to collect these revenues, which is a fact, because I said this during National Taxpayers Day, that if you're not able to generate our own resources, we cannot claim to be sovereign or independent. So we're only independent if we're able to manage our own affairs, and part of that is funding our own budget. But having said that, we need to look at the multiplier effect, so that we don't push so much to collect these few monies at the expense of, for example, even other consumption taxes we would have collected if these people stayed longer here, if they chose Kenya as a destination again. It's also a matter of retraining, continuous retraining of the officers, so that Kenyans are saying, it's how you're handling me, it's how you're asking for this information, it's how you're handling my bag, it's how you're asking me questions, it's how you're treating me that I'm not comfortable with. So I think it's about retraining them and continuous engagement to tell travelers what they're supposed to do. I think there is usually that announcement that's made just before landing, that maybe you might want to work this more with airlines, so where they should take more time to explain, what goods are restricted, what are prohibited, what items are, the green and the red, and make sure that we mark the green and red alloys properly at the airport, so that by the time someone is landing, there is that expectation. The information that you provided, that those checked-in luggages are not subject to additional scan, apart from if they've been marked. I think that's also new information. I personally didn't even know that, and I think this is information that we need to put out there, and also most importantly, arm this information with KRA officials, because as I gave you my experience, I didn't. Mine was not to break the law, but the way it was being explained was what was with kiburi and madharau, so that you don't want to. So treating these people as our customers, our clients. In fact, they are investors, they are employers, they are the ones why we have that job, because if we don't collect these taxes, we won't be able to pay our salaries. And we thank you for your continuous hard work for this country. The reason why this is causing such a great national concern is KRA is the engine of the country. Because you're the one who collects revenue that runs the country, including the one that runs the counties. So if your image is tainted, if you don't appear to be doing the right thing, then the perception is we're not headed in the right direction as a country. But I have no doubt in my mind that Kenya Revenue Authority has one of the best qualified people in Kenya. You have got very good human capital. There are a few elements that spoil for the others, but let us continue to portray a good image of the authority, and be sure of this support. Where it is about legislation, we have picked it up. We'll pick it up with the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, so that they can take it to the Ministers of Finance in the region. But even as we do that, we also institute an amendment in our own Parliament here, so that we a law that was passed 2004. So much has changed since then. And we thank you very much. We thank you. Pass our regards to our Commissioner General. And you have the best of our regards and support as you carry on your mandate.